let's welcome our three guests here. And there's nothing like doing something like this from our homes because we're all in these unique environments that you usually wouldn't see on a panel. And so with Bobby, Robbie, and Marissa, I know you're all in various locations, but thank you each for coming. So Bobby Ruiz, Marissa Quinn, and Robbie Conal, do you mind if we go around and you just give a brief intro how you're doing and where you are right now? But let's start with Bobby.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Jim. It's good to be here. I'm in Escondido, so I'm just enjoying some of my time at home, just hanging out with the family, doing some art myself, working when I have to, and just trying to get through it. It's like everybody else.
Oh, I hear you. That's not as you. And the painting behind you.
That is done by a friend of mine named Mayonnaise, who's actually from Australia, who I'm lucky to have a couple paintings from him.
Very cool. How about you, Marissa?
I'm in Encinitas, so just north of, or I guess south of Oceanside. Right now, though, I'm at my parents' house because I'm having a lot of internet issues at my own house, and it's kind of tricky with everything going on to have an internet guy in your house. So I'm here checking on my parents. This is their house, and that's my old painting.
That's so funny. I know it is strange because we live in an open environment here, and I have family on the other side of the room. This is a piece by Klett, who's a street artist in Florence, and it's unusual, but everybody else is joining us from their unique locations as well. I love it. Robbie, how about you? And we're going to have to unmute Robbie.
There he is.
I don't think you should have done that, Jim.
I know. That was, first of all, I think I put in a request before we started this panel that Robbie be muted for at least 2/3 of it, but we had to ask more questions. Let's start over. So, Robbie, where are you?
What?
Where are you right now?
That's a good question. I've been wondering that myself lately. I'm in Los Osos, which is a great place to be, in this time because nobody else is here and nobody knows where it is, and we're not telling anybody.
Well, let's I want to dive into the show because it was such an exciting night. You were all there for the opening, and we have a few slides that Adam's going to put up, but I thought we would just select one or two to feature, and I was going to ask each of you just to talk a little bit about the work that you had in the show. And it doesn't have to be super long, but at least reminds folks what the show was. They could go see it at the museum, and hopefully they can again soon. But we're going to start with Bobby. So we'll ask Adam to flip that slide up of Bobby's work, which featured Chicano Park. So that'll be a few slides. There we go. Super. Bobby, you want to take it away?
Yeah, Chicano Park has always been one of my favorite places to shoot just because it's so colorful. And there's usually happenings going on there. There's cool cars that'll show up, and it's just one of my favorite places because it's so colorful and lively and cultural. I shot this several years back. It's a friend of mine, Kobe's car, and it was just an afternoon. We just decided to go to the park and hang out and look at the murals, and I just caught the right light, and it worked. So this is also one of my favorite pictures. There's a gentleman you can see sitting at the bench who has a real interesting story. He's actually standing. He has a cowboy hat on. He's known at the park as El Tío, and he's one of the caretakers at the park, kind of self-assigned, where he takes care of the rose bushes around one of the murals of the Virgen de Guadalupe. He actually was homeless and lived under the bridge for a while, but for years and years, he was always there. Every time I'd go to the park, I'd see him. I also was able to photograph him a couple times, but it was just cool that I was able to capture the color of the car and him in the same shot. So I thought it'd be a good one for the show.
Yeah, thanks. It's a very cool image printed on metal. And even one of our viewers, BJ out there, says he was lucky to see this in person. So I love that. We got a lot of comments coming in as we're talking.
Cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think the next slide is one of Marissa, or it's actually one of Robbie. Oh, it is Marissa. Marissa, tell us about this piece.
Okay, this piece is called Cyclical Biophilia, and it's actually about the endangered stellar sea lion. So my work generally deals with environmental degradation or species who are threatened or endangered. And I like to weave in, kind of a dreamscape into the style of biological illustration in order to create more of a story conversation around some real issues going on. And this one is, like I said, the stellar sea lion, which had in my area been endangered for a while. And it's actually a story of hope because the sea lion is now regenerating and the population is expanding once again due to our efforts. So I did create this kind of coral scene that's supposed to look almost like a womb, but also with some, life and some goriness. So it's kind of that balance between the conversation of life and death and how us as humans can help or harm. And so, yeah, it's kind of both and all in between. And the whole point of this piece is to say that everything is connected. And yeah, I'm really passionate about it. It's super detailed. So I really wanted it to be like as interesting 3 inches up to it as it would be as interesting like 3 feet away from it. So I think it's like 4 feet by 6 feet long, and it's a diptych in one frame. And yeah, I build all my frames too. So that's a hand-built frame, and it's float mounted in there. And yeah, that's that.
Yeah, well, Mason Plum online says the detail is incredible, and that's true. And when we did tours, when the exhibit first started, I know this was one of the favorites, and folks would marvel. And you're right, the kind of looking forward and leaning back that folks get, or the process they do when they experience it. What's neat about all 3 panelists today is they each fit in one of the categories of the show. And for folks who haven't been there, the show is divided into basically three sections when we're looking at work that's political, environmental, social. Obviously, everything is activist involved. And the first room was manipulation of media, and that's where Bobby would have been with photography, where Marissa, the room Marissa was in, dealt with emotion and beauty. And so both of those themes being when you see something emotional, when you're able to heighten emotions, you're more likely to remember it. And then also with beauty, it draws you in and it lowers your guard a little bit. The third section is humor, and that's where we find Robbie Conal, and we can flip to his installation. Robbie, tell us what's going on with the witch hunt here.
Well, Melissa mentioned gory, and speaking of gory, this is a curated selection of about 45 or 50 pieces in a series I did called Cabinet of Horrors. And it's pretty much a whack-a-mole type thing where it's Bush and his cabinet and people in his orbit who he keeps firing, and then worse ones keep popping up to replace them, and then he fires them and even worse ones come and keep popping up. So these are the original paintings. And they combine, images and text, hopefully kind of satirical and punny. My biggest problem with these was when I got these people to come into the studio and sit for their portraits, they were a little fidgety. And so you see all the drippy stuff. I think I tried to make them sweat as much as they make me sweat. And that might not be working to my advantage, but here they are. And my wife, Deborah Ross, designed the installation of the original show, which you've reproduced here a little bit, with grotesque gold frames, kind of like Trump Towers faux gold motif, and black, of course, was the night. Kind of like Bobby's black hat, only there's a lot nicer thing under Bobby's black hat than under Trump's black hat.
Robbie, when people come across your work, especially something like Witch Hunt, what kind of reactions do you usually get from folks?
Well, if everybody liked my work, I would consider myself a failure. So I get, any kind, I try not to be around when they encounter my work, Jim.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing about this translates into street art. And so these are the originals, but then they become thousands and thousands of street posters. And one of the things about the pandemic and stay-at-home orders, street artists are really worried about, one of the things that we concern ourselves with is volume, like distribution, getting our stuff around enough so that it reaches critical mass and lots of people can see it. Well, with the stay-at-home orders, that makes our job a lot easier because all we have to do is go around grocery stores and pharmacies. And, but now, of course, with like Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, opening up business for massage parlors and tattoo parlors, no offense, Bobby, and bowling alleys, I thought of a new one. I mean, they keep coming up. So Brian Kemp, here's one for you, Bobby. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, opening up right now, like when his numbers are still going up for coronavirus fatalities. How about shop till you drop dead?
I think it works. We'll ask Bobby if he can put it on a T-shirt for us, maybe.
A little charm to it. We'll go tribal.
Yeah, I think that's. So I'm glad you pivoted back to Bobby, because Bobby, one of your big roles is founder and CEO of Tribal, and we know that's it's a worldwide corporation. It's something that's one of the original streetwear companies based in San Diego. With all of this and what's happening, how have you pivoted your organization with COVID-19?
I think first in the beginning it was a little tough because I really started stressing out, and when things go bad with the business, I usually have a tendency to stress and beat myself up a little bit with it. But with this, I just kind of took comfort in knowing that it's a worldwide thing, and it's nothing that I could have it's nothing that I did. I didn't mess up. It wasn't a mistake I made, or it wasn't just poor planning on my part or bad business or anything like that. And the whole world's in it. And I am seeing a hit internationally because I do a lot of business overseas in Asia and South America and all over the world pretty much. So what, obviously there's no income in the retail business. The international sales just kind of stopped, but we just kept our heads down, kept working, kept designing, and we are doing really well. Our online business seemed to have taken off. I would say maybe doing twice as much as we were doing before. And we've been killing it with masks. Like we've designed some masks. We're on our third production runs of masks. Yesterday we released masks around 3 p.m, and they were sold out by 5. And there's a lot, not just us, but there's a lot of artists and bands and people that are in the business that are being creative with masks. I know Big Sleeps is doing a cool mask. OG Abel's doing a cool mask. We've got a couple masks in the work, some new ones and new styles, new fits. So I think that there's opportunity there, and not just for the masks that everybody's currently wearing, but I believe that there's going to be new accessories that are going to be developed just to prevent the spread of illness, any sort of illness, and people are going to come out of this just being more careful and conscious of their health and where they're at and who they're around, and just how things are transmitted. And so that, I think, would create opportunity. But there's graphics that we've been generating, new graphics, and being a little more creative, and just kind of doing as much as we can from home, designing from home and experimenting from homes. But I also think that once this is over in regards to Tribal and brands in general or art, I think there's going to be different perspectives or different styles when people come out. I think there may be, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some people that are going to be pissed off, angry, broke, unemployed. So that may, I'm sure it's going to be reflective in their arts, what their art or what they're willing to wear, maybe a little bit darker, a little bit more of an angry feel. But I also think there's going to be people that come out more appreciative and loving and just kind of just with more of a positive feel for and appreciation for their surroundings. So maybe a little more color too. So that's going to be interesting to see how that affects our brand and the direction of our graphics and clothing in general. But from a business standpoint, we're just rolling with it, and we're fortunate enough to have a really strong following and support, and just people need masks right now. So the advantage is people are going to the e-store, online store, and purchasing masks and buying other stuff as well. So we're just riding it out, and hopefully the international business falls back into place, and back to normal at some point.
Yeah. Well, those masks I know have been really popular, and even several people in the chat have commented how cool they are. There's one thing to make a mask; it's another thing to make it fashionable and something that someone would be proud to wear. And so I know you have a few options, and I even went on when you posted them last night, and I think they sold out pretty instantaneously. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, less than 2 hours. And we thought we had enough to last us a while, but it was a huge response. And that was the second run we did of them, and we'll be releasing more hopefully by Monday.
Okay.
Hey, Bobby, maybe you could send some to hospitals. They're running out too.
Yeah, but the ones that we're doing aren't like medical grade. But yeah, that's an idea too. I know that maybe they're not the standard that they might need in a hospital, like the N95 quality masks. So these are protective for sure, but not, I don't think it's hospital grade.
Yeah. Well, obviously lots of things are changing. An example of how you're doing your business is changing. Marissa, as an artist and as someone who makes their soul living through creating, and how has your process changed? And I'm going to tack on a question from Atul here that he asked in the comments is, have you had any different types of inspirations since this started? Is this going to change your work at all?
Yeah. Let's see. So when this first all started, I freaked out like everyone else, and I saw a huge freeze kind of like on what people were buying from me. And this year I had a big year of murals planned, and I initially got a rejection. One of the murals was saying, we don't have tourists, we don't have money, we don't have your funding, we don't have your grant money anymore. So that was a big adjustment to see, okay, the game plan of doing basically like a mural tour this year is probably not going to happen. So then I had to pivot pretty hard into diving back into a normal studio practice, which I hadn't been doing as much just because I was so focused on murals and proposals, and you know how that goes with so many emails, talking to so many people, that my studio practice had kind of wavered. And so I thought, well, we're stuck at home. I'm just going to do art every day, a piece every day, and see what happens. And so at first I just let myself play, which was amazing. I hadn't, it sounds crazy, like to people who aren't used to art, but a lot of your art tends to then become like a task. And so I hadn't played in the studio for a long time. And yeah, it has changed my work already. My work usually in the past, like I said, had been about endangered species and, very environmental concerned and raising awareness for conservation. And all of a sudden my figurative work has come back with, being locked down. And so maybe it's because I crave human connection again. So I'm drawing humans. But there's this playfulness coming through my work all of a sudden. And so, I got afraid of what's going to happen to my business. And then I also realized people still want art, even though maybe people aren't willing to pay a huge penny for it. So I kind of decided to do an experiment on my Instagram and just do a drawing a day for $100 and see if people would go for it. And it's just been crazy, like selling like hotcakes. And then I have a big waiting list on that. So it's just interesting to see how the online community is still embracing the arts and how you can kind of meet them in the middle with your price point. And then I still am doing indoor murals. So I have an indoor mural I'm working on right now, but all of my outdoor public art has been on hold for the rest of the year. So still not sure how I'm going to do that, but definitely a lot of pivoting back to online, and then also teaching a couple classes online for free. And now I'm also offering art coaching advice online as well. So a couple new things I'm trying.
Yeah, and you were just painting a mural today. Was that
Yeah.
it was an indoor, as a commission? Okay.
Yep. I can't say too much about it, but yeah, it's just cool how some businesses are like full steam ahead. We're going to just keep doing life like it was. And then other people, like, you know, all of the projects that I had on grant money, those are all frozen. So yeah.
Well, Robbie, you're always painting people, but it's usually not the beautiful type. Obviously you're always your fingers on sort of the stove in terms of who you're going to burn or who's burning us. But with all of this, what have you been thinking about? Who are you painting? What are you focusing on in your studio?
Well, I'm still painting all the bad guys. There are enough to keep me busy, but my wife has always been a little concerned that I spend so much time with them, and that might affect my mood or my personality. I don't know how she could think that, but and she's been lobbying for years for me to do something positive. So I don't do that very often, but she suggested doing a series of inspirational women. I don't know where she came up with that one. But I said, well, okay, honey, which is my standard answer to everything. And I did an actual positive portrait of Ruth Bader Ginsburg with the word supreme under it.
Yeah, we have a slide of that. If while you're talking, Adam can bring that up and share that with us. But yeah, go for it. Keep talking.
Keep talking. That's what I love to hear from you, Jim.
I'm always hesitant when I say something like that, and Robbie's on the line.
Well, those guys ain't it, and he's not it either. But nope. bad. Ooh.
Oh.
You know what? Oh.
Wait, you want to stay there? We don't want to lose our audience.
Speaking of COVIDia, he has something to say to you. He happens to be, my friend and me, happens to be right with me here.
Oh, wow.
And he's just got something to say. Jim, I'm not responsible for anything Robbie does, especially to me.
Yeah, my ratings are huge.
It looks like he threw up on my face. I don't know why he would do such a thing. Okay. Anyway.
Right. Where's that mute button?
Let's get back to the good people. So that, that was strange. It's a completely different kind of painting to do celebrative portraiture for me. And there's one. We know her. I think she just had a birthday. She's 17 now. And that's in downtown LA, but Swank actually did that for me. Bobby, I'm sure you know him. Great LA street artist. And Stash Molesky, our great graffiti and street art impresario, set that up for us to get that wall. But so I've been doing a few of them. I did Michelle Obama and Inspire and AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then I did Greta. I've also done Angela Davis and Maya Angelou. So I'm rolling on this series that my wife made me do, and it makes me, almost a nice person every once in a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a change. Sometimes things can be too dark, and you need some inspiration. So I get that, and I think in the history of your images, the positive portraits are the ones that have done the best. They're the ones that have sold the best, even if the constructive, the criticisms are an important part, a critical aspect
Hey,
to
Jim,
it.
who knew people like positive stuff?
I know, it's weird like that, isn't it?
See Wolves forever, right, Marissa? Actually, looking at you, maybe there's a portrait in the works, or maybe I'll do Bobby and do a nice man for once.
Yeah.
And if Jim is nice to me, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It is interesting to see like how we respond to these times, because it is, art is always seen in a context, and throughout art history, we always think about those things. And I know, Bobby, with the amount of artists that you work with, whether it's through clothing design, imagery, but also artists associated with tribal, and what are some of the things you've noticed that you've seen, trends, things that have popped up regarding some of these folks?
Robbie's cat. So what
I want to say hi to you, Bobby.
Hi.
Hey, Bobby.
It's a beautiful cat. Really cool.
Again, this would never happen on a regular panel, but hey, this is what it looks like.
Robbie, how could Robbie ever be on a regular panel, right?
That is, regular in quotes, yes.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing a lot of really cool stuff. I'm seeing a lot of artists that are being experimental. They're trying different mediums. They're obviously trying different subject matter. The COVID topic is popping up a lot. What I'm also seeing is a lot of artists who may not have painted in some time, pick up the brush and pick up the supplies again and get back to canvas and drawing and painting and doing some cool stuff. A good friend of mine named Tal Cooperman, who is one of the art directors at the Palms in Las Vegas, which if you haven't been to the Palms lately, it's the art show that they have there is amazing. Everything from Basquiat's and Warhols and Risk and street art, and just it's super cool. But he started painting again, and I know OG Abel's been drawing a lot, and different artists experimenting with, like I said, with people that haven't used watercolor, for example, or doing watercolor or picking up cameras, or kind of their styles are changing, their subject matters are changing, kind of like what Marissa said, like she's seeing things come back to her, and she's kind of experimenting with different looks and styles. And I think that's a Mike Giant piece there. Mike Giant's been doing some COVID pieces, and he's also doing music. He just released a mix that he did produce. That's the cover to his vinyl mix. It's martial law. So that's he just did that recently. So Mike experimenting with music and doing things that he's feeling artistically now, and people just being at home playing records and doing different things. It's real interesting. That's a mask that Big Sleeps did. That's a collaborative actually between Big Sleeps and the Cycle Realm. But I really like what I'm seeing, like OG Abel do again, and Slick is doing really cool. I thought this was really cool. It's just people being at home, doing art and being artistic. And I mean, even people that are messing around in their gardens and doing all types of things. I love this one. This is an OG Abel piece based on Loteria. And I think he did this last week, and super cool. And it's good to see people that you usually don't see putting this much time into pieces, and just, coming up with different styles and just being a little more diverse, and seeing the similarity in the COVID-19, subject matter, and just with the whole pandemic themes and things like that. So it's been it's interesting. I think it's going to continue to be interesting. Like I was saying earlier, I think based on some of the repercussions that might occur within the next several months, we're definitely going to see a change in not just art, street art on the streets, but art in general, and the use of color, and just the way people are expressing themselves with not only what they wear, what they paint. There's some change ahead of us, and it's going to be entertaining, interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot of people feeling very differently. You know, some are, like I said earlier, are going to maybe be bummed, broke, pissed, you know, that they don't have a job or their lifestyle has changed so much. And then there's going to be some other people that maybe are just more loving, appreciative, and, you know, so I think the spectrum is going to get wider.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, the various things, whether they're things that are unavailable, whether they be people, resources, positions, finances, I mean, all kinds of things that we're limited with are impacting us and will continue to. And one of the things I think of, Marissa, is I know that you have a love of the ocean. Surfing's a big passion of yours. You can see it in your work, but also I know from knowing you for a long time, this close down of the beaches has gotta put a damper in the way you do you, and I'm curious how that's affecting you. I mean, related to Bobby's comments. I mean, this is something. It's only a few weeks, and it may lighten up, but at the same time, it's part of the culture of where we live here in San Diego.
Yeah, I know. I totally resonate with everything you're saying, Bobby. And you know, the ocean, I never thought it would be political for me to go to the beach where I grew up. Like, I didn't think that would ever come to be a thing. And yeah, here in Encinitas, things are pretty heated. People are really upset about the ocean being inaccessible at the moment. But for me, I've always had the attitude of whatever your constraints are, you can turn them into your biggest strengths. So I don't have the access to the beach right now. So how can I turn that into a more productive mindset? And that can even apply to whatever your materials are. Like at the moment, I can't get access to this gouache that I really want, but what can I use as a material to compromise for that? And will it create an even better piece in the end? So again, those constraints can be a really good thing if you have the right mindset. And so I'm trying to have that mindset about the beach and not be upset about it. I actually have a sister who works in the ICU, and she's being pulled into COVID patients. She's normally an open heart recovery ICU nurse, and she's in Washington. She's on the front lines. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, I'm not going to complain about not being able to go to the ocean. I can still see it. I can still have a healthy lifestyle. But the cool thing is, with not waking up, so my routine was waking up with the sun and going straight to the beach and surfing every morning. And without that routine, I now wake up and go straight to the canvas. And I haven't done this in a while where, you know, you just wake up straight out of your dreams and go right into creating art. And for me, it's been extremely helpful. And I felt for a while that I was kind of in a rut with what I was doing stylistically. And so, you know, getting up and not having your sensor on and creating something like from that pure place of dreams, it's really unlocked a lot of cool things for me. And it's kind of this like F it kind of attitude, because it's like, oh, COVID, whatever, I can create whatever the hell I want. It doesn't matter. And so it's just kind of pouring out of me right now. And I think it is because I'm so stir crazy because I'm not surfing for like 3 hours a day. And also, like, again, creating like right when you wake up. That's been really cool for me. So it has been kind of a weird blessing after all. So yeah.
At least for the time being.
Yeah.
I would imagine that you know, sometimes change is good like that. It forces us to do things a different way and appreciate them. Robbie, for someone who's been working in the arts for decades and sort of seen ups and downs of gallery life, and I mean, what do you think the future of street art is here in this situation? I mean, no one's out on the street, or there are some people out on the streets because there's nobody out there. It's a little bit different, but I know with your work, it requires community involvement. And so curious how you're thinking about yourself in these times without the guerrilla army and without being able to get a bunch of people together to help distribute posters. How are you thinking about the future?
Well, one thing that this all makes, you know, clearer than it's been, and it's been pretty clear, is that the internet is the street now, and it's a global street. So there's still plenty of people who don't have access to the internet and used to walk the streets. So that's a miss that I'm going to miss. But I wanted to say something related to what Bobby was saying about how this global pandemic might influence cultural production and art making. And it's a little story about Hip Hop Nation and Street Art Nation starting in 2000 when, hip hop culture and street art culture, although I think everything's political, they never really focused on like party politics. It was more like, the cops are going to get us. It was very personal politics of what we do is illegal and they're after us and they're going to bust us and the pigs are going to get us. But with the 2000 election, guys like Shepard Fairey and Mir One realized that it was stolen, and hip hop culture and street art culture and surf culture understand something and they don't like. In the spring of 2004, Shepard and Mir came to me and said, we just have to do something because we can't have this happen again, like in the next presidential election. So how about we get you out of the rest home on the west side of LA and let's all, we'll get the old guy, the OG, the old guy, Papa Smurf, they call me. They even called me that then, unfortunately for me. Let's get together and do a national street art poster campaign, anti-Iraq war and anti-George Bush. And we did that. We put it together and went around the country in the fall of 2004 because Hip Hop Nation got politicized by the dire situation. And I think that's what's going to happen here. That is what's happening here too. More artists, right now, great artists who have never, they've made art all their lives and they're successful, but they haven't necessarily addressed social and political issues, are turning toward this dire situation. And the subject of their art is changing. And just like Marissa said, she's starting to make people. Oh my goodness. What people, Marissa? That's what we want to know. She's coming off of her Sea Wolf pack and, entering human representation. And I'm scared to see what that's going to be like. But I really, there she is. I really think that Bobby's right, that this situation is affecting artists' subject matter. And they're starting to, I always say to, like, I've taught at the university level for my whole adult life. And I always tell students, apply what you do best to what you care about most. And what do we care about most now? Life. It's in danger. And who's responsible for that? As far as I'm concerned, in America, the Trump administration is not doing what it could to protect the citizens, and they've got to be called out for that. And we should rise up and apply ourselves to this very serious subject. Even if we apply, my weapon is humor. Marissa's is bones and beauty, and Bobby's is like international logos, actually, which are very powerful. So whatever we do in our own practice, I think we are going to find ourselves addressing this subject, and I think that's a good thing for the world.
Yeah, I do too. And that answers several of the questions that are coming in from Ellen Greenblum, John Mason. They're asking about that. I mean, this is a world crisis, and it's more than an inconvenience. Artists they should be thinking globally. And if they're not thinking globally, what advice would we have for artists that need to think globally? How can we shift folks to think about the bigger picture?
And one other thing I'd like to say is that, it's a caveat about this kind of art production is I think it's hubris to make art with the goal of changing people's minds about things they care about. So I'm not out in the world with my art trying to get Trump supporters and, rednecks and yahoos to agree with me. I'm out there to express myself in public about public issues that I care about. And I really, have this kind of tightrope that I walk between, and Shepard does too, between propaganda and, expressing your concerns about the world. And where I come from, which is like communist labor union organizing parents, I'm very conscious not to go there with the propaganda thing. It was laid on me my whole life growing up, and for better and for worse, I got politicized, which was great. I just don't want to swallow anything whole, and I don't want to, insist that anybody swallow my ideas whole. I just want to be out there in the public, expressing myself about public issues.
Great. Well, we're coming towards the end. We want to make sure
Thank God.
conscious of time, but I also want to invite, we have a few moments for questions, and we have a bunch coming in, but in case anyone wants to ask something, make sure you type it in now. And there were some interesting ones, and someone asked about the Shepard Fairey Robbie Conal piece, and Robbie is one of Shepard's was very much influenced by Robbie's work. And then a few other people mentioned if they asked if you painted your cats or if your cats are in any of your work. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And there are a whole series of pet portraits, so to speak. I don't know if you want to pet peeves. Yeah.
I'm serious about that either. They're not cutesy pootsy things. They're, real. So it's a little bit more like Marissa, actually, the way I feel about nature and all creatures great and small.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding about that.
I know you're not. No, there's a book about it actually as well. In the meantime, Marissa, someone asked if you had any murals here in North County. If you can, Kyle asked about murals in this area. If you can point somebody toward any of them.
Yeah, I have a collaborative mural I did with an artist named Sky Walker. It's I think it's like a 60-foot wall behind Patagonia. It's short, but it's long. And that was a collaboration. It was one of my first murals that I did, and he took me along to, like, I guess, train me a little bit. And then that mural took me off into all sorts of other murals. So unfortunately, one of the ones I was going to do this year was going to be here again, but haven't heard from any of that. So, but yeah, I've got murals all over the world, but yeah, in my hometown, that one right now.
Yeah, and we had a few requests for Bobby asking about what folks can go to buy the mask and the website, and someone even asked if you'd model one, which I doubt you have one on hand, but where can you point folks to learn more about?
They're on the e-store on tribalgear.com, but there's none available right now. Like I said, we sold out last night, so we should have some more available by next Monday, hopefully, if all goes well. We'll be doing some new styles, designs, and I think we're going to have fun with it. Like we've got some ideas and different shapes and different things that we're going to do to them. But there's also some that will be real simple, just branded, clean adult style ones.
Yeah.
For Robbie.
I hear you. Robbie, you have a new book that came out. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, that's actually your book, kind of about me. Yeah, we have a book about. I've been doing this for 35 years, and look at me, or don't look at me. Look at the book. It's 35 years of political street art, and it's called Streetwise, and I think you can get it on Amazon now within a day or so. Jim wrote the damn thing, so trust that as
good.
But we had a great time doing it, and I really appreciate it, Jim. He's really good at this stuff. I do what I do, but he does everybody. And yeah, it's like maybe 100. You don't have to read it or anything. There are a lot of pictures, or if you think the other way about it, don't look at the pictures and just read Jim's text. There's a lot of stories that he squoze out of me, like the toothpaste is out of the tube. And we have, I always tell, I've done a lot of interviews over the 35 years, but there's the PG-13 version of Robbie's story. There's the R-rated version of Robbie's story, and then there's the XXX version of Robbie's story. And I think Jim is somewhere in the R-rated version.
Yeah,
which is horrifying enough.
Yeah. Well, we have some nice comments that people that already have received it or have read parts of it. Someone even said reading it would be better, so I appreciate that.
I agree with that.
So, Bobby, I'm curious. I mean, there's an article in the LA Times, and Buddy Mulway just asked this question about galleries and the future of galleries, knowing that several of them may close here in the near future.
I was in a meeting today actually with Persuade, Dave Ross, who's also in the show. And we were discussing that. We were talking about a show in a gallery that we have a project going here in San Diego, but ways to maybe where there would be a gallery show one night where you try to get as many people as possible in the gallery to do possibly multi-night shows where, 25 people at a time, 50 people at a time, depending on the size of the gallery, and to move people through the spaces. Because the particular space we were looking at wasn't set up like a typical gallery. There was just different rooms and different areas. There was outside area, and then just how to manage people to walk through the space, and just kind of keep them apart and limit the amount of people that come in. And maybe something where, the goal has always been, wow, we packed the gallery, there was a ton of people there. Now it's going to be something like, well, we did it for 6 nights and we did 50 people a night, or you schedule showing time. So I definitely think there's a way to, work with the system and to do some good shows and to keep it alive, and we'll figure it out. It'll all come together. And I think, people are always hungry to see what's new. And like I said earlier, I think there's going to be some real interesting art that comes from this. And I know there's going to be some really interesting looks and art and subject matter that comes out of this. So I think, galleries will survive. It's then it's just a matter of seeing how many people are actually out there willing to spend, because the effect that it's had on the economy and what that's going to do to the price of art.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it is going to look different, just like whether it's the social media or whatever these venues are going to look like going forward. I know those of us in San Diego are committed and committed to helping that. So I know that's part of my role as an educator, and to help facilitate those things as much as possible. So before we close out, how can folks learn more about each of you? If you want to share Instagram, Facebook, any social media, email, what would be the best way for folks to continue to follow you, Bobby, and Tribal?
My IG's at Bobby Tribal. Website is tribalgear.com. I'm just, do shows here and there, and I'm around, and not just me. It's like there's a whole collective, and this, Jim, like there's so many great artists that I work with, and usually if you go through my posts, you'll be able to discover some really cool art and artists, and it's pretty diverse, the amount of people and things that I work with. But I think just the website, tribalgear.com, working on a couple book projects, I think.
and I will acknowledge Bobby's a good follow, just because of the number of interesting artists that he posts about or follows from the tattoo world, lowrider world, graffiti. There's so many, in addition to anyone he collaborates with in the various product that the Tribal puts out. So definitely one to follow here in San Diego.
Right on. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. And Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, so I post pretty much every day on my Instagram. It's just my name, Marissa Quinn. And I did see a question come through about how to support artists during this time. And I really do think it's kind of a new cultural movement that's going to happen with people younger. Like the young generation is really aware of art and the importance of keeping art around and even investing in art. And so I'd say, even if you can't afford something right now, just to really have that conversation with your friends and make art like that conversation point, just like music, just like, fashion or anything like that, like the fine arts as like, oh, what piece are you collecting or saving up for? And keeping that conversation alive and making it cool. And that's kind of one of my goals on my Instagram as well. So yeah, you can find me on my Instagram there, or I have a website. It's my name, marissaquinn-art.com. And I do offer one-on-one art coaching there. You can always email me there if you want advice or for me to look at your portfolio. And yeah, I seem to have a little knack for college students who need advice. So I love talking to all sorts of young artists. So yeah, reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. I always feel like with Marissa's posts online, they're very personal and you feel like she's talking just to you. So there's something about the way you use the camera and the way you connect with your audience. So it's pretty darn impressive. And the amount of feedback and back and forth you have in social media is pretty incredible and is a nice model for artists to follow.
Yeah, I think it's important. So yeah, definitely reach out. I'll try to get back to you.
Awesome. And last but not least, or maybe least, Robbie, do you have a social media?
I have a wife who does that. You don't really want to deal with me directly, I don't think, as you've noticed. But if you can spell my name, which is like made up anyway, my last name, but Robbie Conal, Conal, you just dial it in and everything comes up. I have a website. There's tons of stuff on it, including interviews. Not quite as good as this, but they're there. One like a talk I gave at the Metropolitan Museum of Art that runs like a fucking hour and a half or something. But there's also stuff for sale. And Shepard once gave me a great bit of advice. He says, make stuff cheap so kids can afford it. Marissa can understand that. And, so I have prints up there that are inexpensive. And I agree, young people are it. And, old people, we can take care of each other, but young people are going to take care of the planet. And if it still exists. And I'm for them. So my art is for them, and it's for sale at prices that I hope they can afford. And I try to make it funny. We have a bunch of knuckleheads, which Jim actually has one, that are kind of like my relief valve when I have had enough and just can't take it anymore at 3 a.m. or something with all these bad guys. I make these crazy skulls, full color with lots of glitter. You can't have enough glitter, LA glitter. And, we make prints of them too. Just a little relief valve from all the badness and the badasses. So I'm there for you. And if you have any questions like what's the best kind of glue to use, or how many times you've been arrested or in jail, the 2 most popular questions that I get, I'm glad to answer them. Just don't believe anything I say.
Yeah. And all joking aside, Robbie is incredibly compassionate, kind, and a loving person. And in doing the book and writing a biography on him, I know he's opened up in different ways, although there is a surface level personality that I enjoy teasing all the time. But for all 3 panelists, I'm really grateful for all of you. One, to be part of this show. It's a phenomenal show. Each of you brings something totally unique and different, and you're all so important to California arts, San Diego, Los Angeles, Southern California in general, but also just contemporary culture. So thank you for being part of this. I'm wishing you well and happiness and health and safety during this time for you and your families, but also continued inspiration. And based on the number of comments that are coming through, I know there's a lot of appreciation just for having a conversation that's open. But I'm also really grateful for everyone who tuned in. I know we had a lot of people sign up, and you can tell by the comments coming through that they're still here. And I know we're looking forward to doing another one of these on Friday with